Well, good evening, everybody. Welcome to Celebrate Recovery. So glad that you're here. My name is Al. I'm a believer who's overcome alcoholism and drug addiction by God's grace through the help of Celebrate Recovery, the recovery rooms, and so many people who've just played a huge influence in my life. Just want to welcome you if you're new tonight, especially if this is your first time. I may not have met you yet. My name, as I said, is Alan Tobias, and I'm the ministry leader for Celebrate Recovery. I've been gone to Montana. I'm here in Montana for the past couple months. And what we do in the summertime here at Celebrate Recovery is we have what we call our summer speaker series. And what a fantastic summer it's been in spite of the adversity of COVID and the impact of that on so many people's lives. We're just grateful that we have this church, this building that we can gather in. Just want to remind you guys, man, just be safe. Please, wear face masks when you can, social distance if you can. But what a summer it's been. It's just been amazing. From the very beginning, we've had some fantastic testimonies. We had Todd, Brian Glick, Bree. Last week we had Ted. Brian Lawler did Step 7 for us in the first month, in the month of July. And more recently, we've had Pastor Nick a couple of weeks ago who talked about forgiveness. The week before that, David Sutton celebrating 40 years of recovery. We've had Brian Yost. It's just, Greg Hatch from Bayside Celebrate Recovery, who goes into the churches, and Rob Rafter, who is the regional representative for Celebrate Recovery. We've just been so blessed, and couldn't have done it without Pastor Brian Yost, who has just he kind of steps into my role in my absence, and just what a blessing it is to have so many people and to be able to draw us from such a vast pool of people with great recovery. Last Sunday, I was with some good friends. Many of you know Bob and Lori Clucky. They also moved out here to Montana, and I was with them as we were getting ready to watch CR last Sunday, and I got a phone call from Cameron, who had let me know that our dear friend Chuck Brendelson had passed away. Chuck had been battling cancer just really recently. We knew that he was getting sick, and his diagnosis was revealed a few weeks back, and we're just blessed by the fact that for 11 years, Chuck has been a partner with me in Celebrate Recovery. He has served faithfully over these years, and we love him. He loved people. He loved Celebrate Recovery. He headed up the usher team. He served for in so many ways, and so we're going to miss Chuck here, but we know that he is in a better place. He's been reunited with some of our other friends that have gone on before us, with Bud and Court and Tiffany. They're watching from above, and so we're just so blessed to have known these people and had them play such a huge role in our lives. So tonight, what I'd like to do is to kind of go out of order a little bit. For the month of August and September, we look at Principle 6 and Steps 7 and 8. Principle 6 says this, that we evaluated all of our relationships. We offer forgiveness to those who have hurt me or hurt us, and we make amends for the harm that we've done to others, except when to do so would injure them or others. And the scripture in which these principles are taken from come out of the Sermon on the Mount that Jesus gave, probably the best sermon of all time. And we look at this verse coming out of Matthew 5, verse 6, and it says, "Happy are the merciful." I want to dive into that a little bit tonight as we look at the promises, but it's about being merciful to people who have hurt us. And then happy are the peacemakers, which are it's my action to be a peacemaker, to go and try to make amends for the things that I have done to hurt other people. And so we look at step 9 specifically in the month of September. And what the 9th step says is that we carried on into action. We made direct amends to such people wherever possible, except when to do so would injure them or others. And then another scripture that goes along with this that comes a little bit later in this chapter, it says, therefore, if you're offering your gift at the altar, and there you remember that your brother has something against you, leave your gift there in front of the altar. First, go and be reconciled to your brother, then come and offer your gift. Now, for me, when I first read this, I'm like, what's this all about? I don't know if I really get this. But as you read, for those of you who are in the rooms of recovery, in the 6th chapter of the big book talks about into action. And this is an action step. It's stating that I need to put something into motion. And what God is saying and what Jesus is saying through the scripture is, before you even try and, offer anything to God, go and be reconciled to your brother. It's more important to God that our relationships be intact. Brian talked about that, and he's going to continue to talk about that in the next couple of weeks. It's about relationships. It's about restoring relationships. Tonight this is a little bit different. This is probably the first time that I can recall doing an actual video at a live service for Celebrate Recovery. When COVID first came out, we did some online services that were pre-recorded. And so for the sake of this tonight doing the message, I want to keep it brief, but I have one specific intention. And that's for those of you who are newer to the program. We talk a lot about recovery from drugs and alcohol in our Celebrate Recovery. But truth be told, these principles are enduring principles. They're moral principles. They're biblical principles. They're life principles. These are principles that God created us to live by. Just kind of some of the golden rule principles of, caring for each other, sharing with one another, loving each other. A life like that has significance and value. And so tonight I want to talk about the promises. It's a little bit out of order because really the promises that come out of page 83 and 84 of our big book are there for a reason, and they follow in this specific order because up until this point in the program, what we've done is we've laid a foundation for, just our humanness, our brokenness, our powerlessness, our unmanageability in our lives. And man, I can't think of a time, in our history other than, this morning, Friday morning, watching as 9/11, as the Twin Towers came down. I thought that was going to be my big cataclysmic event in my lifetime. But here we are in the middle of COVID-19, which, for a lot of us hasn't affected us very much, but it's affected a lot of families with the death of a loved one or loss of a job, loss of a home, loss of income. It's really played itself out, and it's continuing to do that. But these promises, I think, are specifically important to us now as we go through difficult times. And for anybody that's new into this recovery program, this program of Celebrate Recovery, one of our banners is that it's all about freedom from our hurts, habits, and hang-ups. It's about freedom. And so tonight I'd like to just walk us through the promises that so many of you are familiar with, because we read these at just about every recovery meeting that you go to. They're the promises that follow after this part of doing the action steps of recovery, where we've done an inventory, where we've admitted to ourselves, to God, and to another human being the exact nature of our wrongs, where we've asked God to intervene in our lives and to humbly ask Him to remove our character defects and our shortcomings. And now it's about relationships and restoration. And upon completing these things, as you work through the first 9 steps, it's followed by these promises. So let me read the promises and kind of give you, there's 12 promises, which is amazing, right? We got 12 steps, we got 12 promises. Let me read these to you, and as I go through these, I just kind of like to expand on each individual one a little bit. Because I don't know about you, but when I first came into the program of Alcoholics Anonymous, and I heard somebody read these promises, I was like, oh man, that sounds so much like what I wish I had in my life. I was so far to the extreme away from what these promises talked about. And I got to tell you that it was really, it was like even to have a hope of these promises coming true in my life were so far out there. I couldn't believe that they would ever be possible for me. But let's go into into these promises. And let me just first start reading what it says, page 83 of the big book. It says, if we're painstaking about this phase of our development, we'll be amazed before we are halfway through. And I don't know about you, but as I started to put day after day together in my program of recovery, what seemed to happen was that life did take on sort of a new meaning, you know? And as I worked through the steps of the program and I got through 4 and 5 and 6 and 7 and 8 and 9, these promises, I could look back and say, man, some of these were coming true already before I actually did some of the work. It says, that we'll be amazed before we're halfway through. And as part of that action step, I know a lot of people that come into this program, they just go to meetings and that's it. And, they miss the whole benefit of working the steps of this program. So if you're one of those people, I want to call you out tonight, because you are not going to experience these promises by just going to meetings. Don't drink and go to meetings. That's a good start, but that's just the beginning process of it. But number one, it says that we're going to know a new freedom and a new happiness. And what I like about this is that this new freedom is a promise that we know a new freedom for happiness. This is like, a complete change from when I was actively in my addiction. The first promise assures us complete freedom as our reward for staying with the winners. It encourages us to make wise use of our free choices. The new freedom brings love, honesty, gratitude, humility, positiveness, faith, hope, and trust. Our choices become steps in spiritual growth. Number two, we will not regret the past nor wish to shut the door on it. My past was something that I had so much shame about. And I had a lot of regret. I have to admit that there were just things that I thought I would carry around for the rest of my life. But what I have learned is that my experiences, my good experiences and my bad experiences, my things that I was, embarrassed about, felt guilty about, felt shame about, that those were the things that in my fourth and fifth step, as I confessed those, I felt that freedom that it's talking about. And that the regrets, I was able to deal with most of those in the 8th and the 9th step by making amends and forgiving other people. And so it just enhanced this new freedom that I was experiencing in my life. Today I can look back and, to be honest, there's some things that I wished that I would have done differently. I do regret. But you know what? Today I look at where I'm at in my life, and I'm grateful for everything that happened in my life, because my experiences today have shaped my life, and I'm able to connect and relate to people who have those similar experiences and similar regrets. It says we will comprehend the word serenity and that we'll know peace. Man, that was something that for me, just having peace of mind, serenity, that I was just okay with the circumstances, that each day brought something into my life, but whether it was a challenge or an adversity, I could have peace in knowing that, God's got this. I can't handle this on my own, and I was okay to admit certain things. And it brings a sense of serenity and a sense of peace into my life. It talks about how going far down on the scale, no matter how far down the scale we've gone, we'll see how our experiences can benefit others. You know, that's the story of recovery. It's one broken person, one alcoholic, one addict, one person who has a hurt, a habit, a hang up, that can share their experiences no matter how far down they've gone into their addiction or whatever was pulling them down. They can use those. Who better? I mean, who better to speak to somebody who's lost a child than somebody else who's lost a child? Who better to talk about, going through the experience of maybe 9/11, if somebody's gone through that, than somebody else who's gone through that same experience. So for the alcoholic or the person in recovery, it's that person that we connect to. Bill and Bob realized that early on in the program, that it was one alcoholic reaching another alcoholic, that wives, doctors, psychiatrists just couldn't seem to connect with the addict, with the alcoholic. But another alcoholic could feel their pain and knew where they were coming from. And there was a trust that was built. That feeling of uselessness and self-pity, man, I just blamed everybody for my problems. It was her fault, it was his fault, it was my job, it was this. And, I just felt like my life had no meaning and no purpose, that I was like useless. Actually, I felt like a piece of crap. And so many of you have said the same thing. I just didn't feel like my life mattered. Number 6 says we will lose interest in selfish things and gain interest in our fellows. My life was all about me, wasn't it? It was self-centered to the core. Selfishness, self-centeredness, that was the problem that I had. And something happened, and I don't know how to explain it exactly, but I know that it was God working in my heart. There was a day where I would look out, and I'd be at Salvation Army, for instance, and I would look out at these people and go, my gosh, I care about these people. I love these people. These are my people. I am one of these people, and my heart began to become tender and sensitive towards others who were suffering. It says self-seeking will slip away. And again, I think that's, rooted in our selfishness. It's just that it was always, for me, it was about me. I would use people, for things that they might have to get what they had. I was always about more. My disease was I wanted more of everything. It says our whole attitude and outlook on life would change. Now that's one for me that came after a couple years, I guess, in recovery, and after practicing these principles and working these steps. It was my attitude towards life. It was about the fact that God put me here for a reason. God has a plan for my life, and God has a plan for your life. And so my attitude towards things were, it's like there's no coincidences, there's no mistakes that seem to happen, that there's an order to things. And my attitude was an attitude of acceptance and gratitude. And man, was that an extreme, difference from how my attitude on life was before. We talk about coming out of the darkness and into the light. And that's how I could best describe this new attitude. Fear of people and economic insecurity will leave us. I think that's one that, we struggle with. We'll probably struggle maybe with the financial part of this, promise, maybe until the day we die. I don't know. But what I do know is that as I look back at my experiences in life, the hardest thing for me to do was to learn how to trust God. And when I get into situations with people, with my economic security, I've just learned to trust God in all of these matters. You know, Jesus talked about the parable of the birds of the air, the lilies of the field, that they don't worry, that they trust God for their daily needs. And that's how we live. We learn to live one day at a time. We learn to live in a relationship with God where we know He loves us and He cares for us and that He'll meet every need. I may not get every want, but that was the old behavior. Today, all my needs are met. It says we will intuitively know how to handle situations which used to baffle us. Man, that one came, I think, sooner than later. It was like all of a sudden there was this new sense I had that I was able to figure things out better. And I know that it wasn't of my own mind, that it was, intuit means that I was able to see that through this situation, that I could get through it somehow, in some way. I could figure things out. Things just started to make more sense to me. It says we will suddenly realize that God was doing for us what we could not do for ourselves. Man, is that an understatement? I can't tell you how many people have shared with me about a court date, and they were sure they were going to go to prison for 3 years or 5 years. For me, ever being able to drive a car again, there were just so many things that God was doing. As I did my part, God would step into the order of my life, and things just seemed to work out. That God was doing things that I couldn't have imagined. Where I am today in my life, which I'm just so blessed. I feel so grateful. I know that apart from God, none of these things would be possible in my life today. My relationships, just so many things in my life. And then it says, the final promise is that, are these extravagant? We think not. They're being fulfilled among us, sometimes quickly, sometimes slowly. Here's the promise. They will always materialize if we work for them. And so the action, that's the promise. It doesn't say sit back and, on your couch and wait for these things to come true. This is about the action of working the steps, applying these principles in our lives, and that they come true. So if you're sitting in a seat tonight and you're going, man, those things, the promises look great, but I just don't see it ever happening in my life, I can promise you, God can promise you that these will come true. Because I've seen it work out not only in my own personal life, but all of my close friends in recovery. They're in different stages of seeing these promises being fulfilled in their lives. And it has. So for those of you who are here tonight, maybe you've been around the program for a while, you've worked these steps, you've applied these principles in your life, these are true. For some of you in the middle of that pack, they're coming true. You're starting to see how God is doing things on your behalf that you couldn't have done for yourself, restoring relationships. Oh man, I love to hear the stories of, I got my driver's license back. I didn't think I'd ever get my driver's license back. I got a job that I didn't think I could ever get. My kids are talking to me again. My ex-wife and I are, we're at peace with one another. These are things that we couldn't have even imagined at one point in our life. We're seeing that happen. But then there's, a group of you who are new into this program. And, you're entering in a difficult time. There's not a meeting every hour of every day here in Sarasota now like there used to be. It's going to take additional work. Just going to meetings and staying sober, like I said, that's a beginning. But there's things that you can be doing in your lockdown life right now, which is reading the big book of AA or NA or Celebrate Recovery Bible, applying the steps, getting a sponsor, talking to people. That's the key. I love this quote. It says, where you are, the distance between where you are and where you want to be is a lot of times doing the work you don't want to do. True confession time. A lot of this work I didn't want to do. And I tried to, skirt around it. I tried to avoid it. As a matter of fact, early in my recovery, I said, nah, I don't need to do that stuff. And you know what? I'd go back out. I'd go back into my addiction every time. But it was when I applied these principles and when I worked these steps that my life changed and these promises came true. So I'm going to invite Brian to come up on the stage right now and dismiss you guys and maybe give you a little bit of his thoughts on this and a challenge. I'd love for you to hear it come from him. So it was great being with you guys tonight, even though it's kind of, virtual. But I'll be with you guys on Sunday night, and I guess watch myself do this on your screen. So I love you all. God is good. He's got a plan and a purpose for your life. Please don't miss out on these promises because they do come true. Love you guys. Good night.